Yesterday, Deadlock received what is arguably the biggest update in its entire history. Now, the update from 4 lanes to 3 lanes was also quite huge, but I would argue that this one changes more about the fundamentals of the game than the previous one did. Let's talk about it. This update is so massive that a ton of the changes are just nowhere to be found in the patch notes because Valve didn't even write them. So my goal today is not to talk to you about every single change that was done, but more so talk about the big picture, the implications that this has on the average player, as well as the game of Deadlock, and leave all the small details to other channels that can cover them better, such as Dead Air. If they put a patch out, they put a video out, I'll put a link to it in the description and in the comments, because I think that they'll be better at covering all the small little details than I will be. As always, there will be a link to the patch notes below, so you guys can look at it yourselves and determine what you like, what you don't like, and read all the little changes. Without further ado, let's get into it. So they've completely reworked the entire item system, and they've given new art to pretty much every single item. So if you look at all the items, you open up the shop, there's new art for the items, new animations when you hover over them, new sounds when you hover over them, as you can hear, right? Like new sounds when you buy them. Essentially, the entire item system is new. Everything is updated. And one of the biggest changes is that there are no more dedicated slots to a certain attribute, and now every slot is universal. With this slot change also came the removal of 4 slots, which means that you now start with 8 slots, and you can unlock up to 4 extra slots, right? They're no longer called flex slots, they're just called extra slots now, which means that you have a total of 12 possible slots versus 16 before. The universal system means that if I want to play Lash and I want him to be full damage, well, I can buy as many of these items as I want, right? I can have 8 orange items if I so desire, and then just be full damage Lash and, not really worry about anything else. On the opposite end, if I want to play full Spirit, I can do that. If I want to play full Tank, I can do that. If I want to do some sort of combination, essentially, you have full freedom as far as the combinations that you do. And previously, the previous system made it so that a lot of the time, if you were playing, for instance, a Spirit build, you still had 4 orange slots to fill, so you had to find items that made sense within your Spirit build, or sometimes skip them. But, filling your slots was very, very efficient, and so you wanted to fill your slots ASAP. And so usually you'd end up buying items that weren't really that useful for the purpose of your build, but were optimal to buy. Now, the second change comes with the tier system and the bonuses. So as you can see here, I have a bunch of orange items. So if you look at my weapon investment, it says I get plus 88% weapon damage. So how the investment works is it's based upon the amount of souls you've spent in that category, and not upon how many items you have in that category or the tier of them, right? So previously, let's say that you bought a tier 1 weapon item like close quarters, you get something like 6% weapon damage. I forget exactly the percentage, but I think it was something like that. Now, as you can see here at the bottom left, you need to spend, to get 6% weapon damage, you need to spend 800. Now, if you want to get 8% weapon damage, you need to spend 1600, right? So previously, 2 800 costs, or 2 tier 1s, because they weren't 800, would have given you 12% total. Now they give you 8%. Essentially, this is a large nerf to filling out your slots with cheap items. So before, a lot of the time, people would say, hey, fill out your slots, it's very, very efficient. Well, filling out your slots just got a whole lot less efficient. Now, the only advantage left to filling out your slots is that typically, items that are cheaper are going to have more value to them per souls. Now, this isn't even always true, right? For example, Rapid Rounds has 10% fire rate, and the item that's twice the cost, Swift Striker, has 20%, right? And so you don't actually get any more value from Rapid Rounds than you use Swift Striker, so there's no advantage not to upgrade it. So the entire philosophy behind building has completely changed, and I suspect a lot of builds are going to see complete overhauls and big changes. And my goal is to try to tell you a little bit about that so that you can build better and you can experiment better with your own builds. Now, the other thing is there were a ton of new items added. I haven't even counted, but just in the weapon category, we've got Backstabber, we've got Opening Rounds, we've got Split Shot, we have Blood Tribute, Cultist Sacrifice, Express Shot, Spirit Rend, I guess is kind of new. And then we have a bunch of new items here, right? So I think overall there's got to be 30 or 40 new items. I haven't even counted, but it feels like there's 10 new items per category. And it's really, really awesome. And I hope you guys get a chance to try it out. I'm not going to read all of them here. I might make another video for that, because my video here is just to cover the general changes. What do these whole item changes mean? I already talked about some of the implications of filling out your slots and the fact that you can have builds that have more of a direction. But the other thing that this means, the other thing that this change had, is that essentially every item lost a lot of stats. So Alchemical Fire is a great example. If you guys remember, Alchemical Fire in the past had stats that were like, I think it was like 225 bullet shield, 14% weapon damage, 8 spirit power, and 1 meter per second sprint speed. It essentially had like 4 stats. Now they stripped the item down to 8 spirit power. Only gives 1 stat. And if you look at a lot of items only give 1 stat. Some items give multiple, like escalating resilience, for example. But most items are pretty limited on the amount of stats they give, and they're much more streamlined. In my opinion, this is great because this makes the items a lot more intuitive, because you don't have to think about all the extra possible stats that every item gives, and the fact that like extra charge gives you extra weapon damage and all that stuff that really didn't make any sense. So it just makes more sense. And the second thing is, this reduces every hero's power. So there's a lot of things that reduce every hero's power. First of all, the slots being reduced. Second of all, this change, which, you know, just every item just has less stats, so every item is just weaker for the cost than its previous counterpart. And the second thing is that overall, you know, the first items are 800s and they're worse than the 500s previously, right? So for the money, you just get less. So essentially, every hero got weaker. And in the patch notes, there's also certain heroes that got specific things nerfed about them. Now, the reality is that there's a lot more nerfs than what you can find in the patch notes. There's been nerfs, particularly to healing. So if you look at any hero that has a healing ability, for example, Lash with Flog, you can see Flog does 50% heal versus heroes. I believe on the previous patch, it was something like 65%. So it got nerfed by 15%. This is the case for every hero that has healing. So if you look at Abrams, Infernal Resilience is now 10%. It definitely was higher than that last patch. I don't remember what it was exactly, right? You look at Ivy. Ivy's Stormform was 6% max health. I think it was 8% before. And when you max it, it's 19%. Before it was like 25% or something. I can't remember the exact numbers, but look at every hero that has healing. Kelvin. I believe that the Dome base healing was nerfed a little bit. I'm actually not sure about this one. And the Grenade was almost definitely nerfed as far as healing goes. I'm not going to go over all of them, but essentially all you need to know is every hero's healing was nerfed. Even Mirage's Scarabs were nerfed, right? His base Scarabs do 40. I think before they were like 60 or something. They've been nerfed a ton at this point. So now we have a couple factors. One, we have the fact that the item system was reworked. Items have less stats and you have less slots. 2, every hero's healing ability was nerfed. And 3, I know for a fact that there's a lot of numbers that were changed about heroes' gun numbers, right? Most heroes' guns were nerfed. For example, I believe that Bebop's gun was nerfed by something like 25 to 30%. I don't have the exact numbers, but Bebop's gun is a lot weaker than it was before. And we don't have the numbers for everything because they didn't put them in the patch notes. I'm sure someone will, you know, take the time to compile everything at some point. I'm not going to do that in this video. But what this means is that heroes being weaker makes the time to kill higher on average, right? On top of that, heroes have more health. So this is another shadow change. I couldn't find anything about it in the patch notes, but if you look at heroes' base health scaling per boon, for example, Lash here, Lash gains 81 health per boon. Last patch, he probably gained like 40. So they doubled the health scaling per boon for most heroes, it seems. You know, you look at Calico. Calico's getting 69. She definitely wasn't getting that before. Abrams is getting 81. Definitely was not getting that before. And, you know, even Vindicta. Vindicta's getting 47, which in the previous patch, 47 would have been the highest HP boon scaling. So, more health. Heroes are weaker. Less slots. All of these factors combine to make a game in which the time to kill, on average, is going to be higher. Now, what do I think about this change? I personally think it's great because the time to kill in previous patch was extremely short. You died pretty much instantly, and obviously you can still die fairly quickly in this patch. It's not like, you know, you're gonna live forever, because people can build glass cannon, right? people can build a lot of damage items of one specific type much more concentrated than they could before. So that is the one thing that's kind of like keeping the time to kill in check, is people can do kind of more damage of a specific damage type earlier because they don't need flex slots to build 6 weapon items, for example. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today, because I don't want this video to be too long, I mostly just want to get a video out there to explain my initial thoughts about the patch and how I think it's going to play out. Last thing I want to talk about is builds. So I had a thought and I decided not to give you guys any builds today. And the reason for that is very simple. I could give you guys builds and it would be better for me. It would give me more views, more engagement, all that stuff. But I honestly believe that what is better for the game and what is better for the community right now is for you guys to have fun and create your own builds. We're in the discovery part. We're in a very, very special moment right now in Deadlock's history where an entire system was overhauled and nobody, not even the top players, know exactly how it works or what's optimal or what's good. Use this weekend to test out your theories. The only thing I have to recommend is, since there's so many new items, so many new things, try to pick a direction for your build. So do you want to be a support? Do you want to be a spirit nuker? Do you want to be more of a tank hero, right? Prioritize green items. Do you want to be just like full glass cannon and get some orange items, right? And don't try out too many new items at once in a game, otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed. So try to be like, all right, this game I want to play around Cultist Sacrifice. Let me see if I can make a build around it, or if I can, use it. This game I want to play around, the new Vortex Web, which is really sick, by the way. Let me try to make a build around that. So on and so forth. So, really get out there, experiment, try stuff, and I'm sure that we'll see really cool builds and innovative builds come out. And in a couple days, I'll start making videos about cool builds that you can use and stuff like that, because it's good content, but I don't want to give you guys that just yet. As far as all the other changes, there's been map changes, there's changes to the power-ups, there's changes to combat mechanics, there's so many changes. Like I said, someone else is going to cover them better than I can, and I'll make an updated video covering the effects of those changes on the meta, which is my primary goal, in a couple of days. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for the support. I'll be streaming this patch and playing a ton, so make sure to come say hi, and I hope you guys have a great day.